Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, UTCC, as well as here in the event center. How was your weekend? Good? Well, I hope you had a good weekend, because my week kind of sucked last week because my two kids decided to get sick, not at the same time, but to take turns. So I was home from Monday through Thursday watching my kids who were sick, and then this weekend I got sick. So if you hear me coughing, I apologize. But I know many of you have been sick as well, right? And if you have been sick, I hope you feel better soon. And if you are the chosen few who are not sick at this point, count it as a blessing, because we are done with first month of school, believe it or not, and you got 3 more to go. And seniors, don't freak out. The end is coming. But I hope you are excited more than freaking out. So one thing that I did while I was cooped up in our house with my kids this past week was that filter thing that you guys have been playing with on Instagram. The one that you kind of press it and then it tells you which Disney character you are. Have you guys done it? Yeah? I know you guys have, because I've seen you on Instagram trying over and over and over again so that you could get the perfect character. So with my kids, we did it, and they loved it. They thought it was the funniest thing. And so as we tried it, they wanted, of course, Mommy to do it. So I did the Disney character one. And guess who I got? No? Guess? Jasmine. No, I had Scar, the uncle who wanted to kill his brother, or not wanted to, he killed his brother and his own nephew as well. So as I tried it, my daughter starts cackling on the side, and she goes, "Mommy, did you know that app tells you which character represents the inside you?" And I'm thinking, what? What are you talking about? So I said, okay, you try it. And she tried it, and she got Maleficent. So I'm like, okay. And I look at my son, and he's trying it over and over and over again, because we were trying the Pokemon one, and he wanted to get the right Pokemon, and he wasn't getting it, so he tried over and over again, just like many of you. But isn't it funny how we get sucked into dumb things like that, right? It's funny, but yet we get sucked into it. And I don't know, as much as I don't like it, social media has a significant impact on how we live and how we lean into things. And even with my kids who don't have any really social media footprint out there, because we have not allowed them to have it yet, they get sucked in. And they actually know all the apps that are out there, and I don't know how they know it. Even things like TikTok, I don't know what that is. I've seen it, but I'm not going to venture there. But we end up allowing these mediums to kind of take over, and we lean into it because we want something to kind of help us figure out who we are. And I think it's because there is something inside of us that desires to know who we are. So even inventories that are helpful, things like Myers-Briggs, Strength Finder, and the popular one right now, Enneagram, right? So how many of you have taken Myers-Briggs? Yes? I am an introvert. I am proud, and I am an introvert. How many of you could name the top 5 strengths? Yes? Maybe some of you claim like top 10 because you can't choose. And recently, I actually went on a hike with about 25 plus students or so into the Glendora hike out there. And one of the questions with Outdoor Adventures with Campus Life, and one of the questions that one of the students asked was, which Enneagram number are you? And I'm sure many of you may know your own as well. For those of you who are wondering what my number is, I am a 2, which means I'm a helper, and with a wing of 3. I'm not quite sure how the whole wing thing works, but I am a 2 with a wing of 3. But again, we often look to things or even people to figure out who we are. And we do this even if we know that you can't really tell people who we are by just looking at them, right? Or it's not that simple to figure out who we really are, our identity. Because in reality, there's more to who we are than what you see. So when you look at me, you could tell that I'm an Asian woman, probably middle-aged. Yes, I have embraced the fact that I am a middle-aged woman. And if you think I'm not, I love you, but I am. My joints tell me so. But you probably can't tell by looking at me that I am a pastor's daughter. My dad's a pastor. And you can't tell, probably, that I've been following Jesus since I was a little girl. I am an educator. I am a scholar. I am wannabe a runner. I wish I did. Although I did finish my half marathon this last week. Yes, thank you. Yep, did it. Done. I don't know if I'll do it again. I am a sweet tooth. I am a former college athlete. Emphasize former. But I did play soccer here for a women's team. And another thing that many of you may not know about me is that I was actually born in Japan, and I was raised there till I was about 9, and did the rest of my growing up in Hawaii. So when I came to US, I was not a citizen. And growing up, and even actually into my early adulthood, I've felt many experiences where I felt like I didn't belong here. And I became very confused about my own ethnic identity. So much so that I needed a piece of paper, which was my birth certificate, to tell me who I was. And by having this piece of paper tell me that I was Japanese, it gave me a level of comfort. Although in reality, I did not feel like I was Japanese, because I didn't fully identify as Japanese national. But I also didn't feel like I belonged in the US either. But my birth certificate, this documentation gave me a sense of identity because it said I belonged somewhere. And it wasn't until later on in my adult life that I came to a full realization that I actually identify as Japanese American. At that time of my realization, none of my documentations actually reflected that. And it wasn't until later on in life that I even decided to become a US citizen. But one thing that I learned through it was that no matter what, documentations didn't define me. So we are complex, and there is so much to us than what people see on the surface, right? And it can be difficult to figure out who we are. So no matter where you are in your journey, we are always seeking, and we are trying to refine who we are and develop a better understanding of how we even see ourselves. I've been working on trying to understand who I am for years, and no matter how long I've wrestled with my identity, if I am not careful, I end up struggling with the things that I thought I was done with. So it is really easy for me to forget who I am if I get caught up in things that doesn't define me. So how many of you can relate to the following statement? I forget who I really am because I allow what others think of me to define me. Or I need to live up to other people's expectations. Or I forget who I really am because sometimes failure is not an option because I need to produce and perform, or else I believe that I am a nobody. Or I often find myself comparing myself to others. So figuring out who you are can be challenging, and it can be a long, long journey. And we often rely on others, maybe even your experiences, and perhaps even lies we've heard throughout our life to define our identity. So Aladdin knew that there is so much more to him than what people saw. He didn't have much. He was on his own. The only family he had was that monkey, Abu. And he didn't have much, so in order for him to survive, he had to steal to make his ends meet. And he's been told all his life that he is a street rat, right? Riffraff, scoundrel, called worthless. And even in this clip, he was told when he dies, fleas are the only thing that would mourn his death. So in spite of all his challenges, he found a way to still not lose his kind heart and his desire to dream. But as you know, as the movie progresses, he starts to believe that he needs to be someone else in order to win Jasmine's love, and that he is not good enough to be himself, and creates this fake, false identity. And he starts to really like this fake prince, the one that Genie made for him, and believes that he needs to be this fake Prince Ali. Aladdin heard lies about himself throughout his life, but at the end of the movie, he finally finds himself. He embraces his true identity and finds peace in being himself. So words are powerful, and it impacts us deeply. And we need to figure out how to choose to hear truth in this world that tells us lies. We need to stop creating a view of ourselves based on how we are doing, or by comparing ourselves to others, or see our success or failure based on what others expect from us. Or gauge your self-worth based on your accomplishments, or maybe even based on how many people actually like you. So God gave us the ability to have a full view of ourselves by seeking to understand how God sees us. But we often blur our views by looking at the wrong thing, or not having a full view of our understanding of ourselves. So just like our eyesight, it is important for us to look at the world with two eyes, right? If you try to use just one eye, you see differently, although it seems similar, right? But it looks different because each eye kind of produces two different perspectives that gets put together by your brain, and you get a full, clear view. So it is critical for us to have both eyes opened in order to have this clear view. And so it's similar for us. In order to look at ourselves, we need to have both eyes open. Parker Palmer says this in his book: "Many of us live one-eyed lives. We rely largely on the eye of the mind to form our image of reality. But today, more and more of us are opening the other eye, the eye of the heart, looking for realities to which the mind's eye is blind. Either eye alone is not enough. We need whole sight, a vision of the world in which mind and heart unite. As two eyes make one sight, our seeing shapes our being. Only as we see whole can we and our world be whole." So here at APU, we desire for you to wrestle with different issues and different questions, and we want you to gain your whole sight. It is important for all of us to learn to ask questions, even if it may cause us to find ourselves in tension. And I hate tensions, but it's important. And in the midst of that, we still need to seek God, who is in the midst of everything. As someone who gets to do life with all of you, my hope is for you to wrestle with the following questions. Who am I? But more importantly, whose am I? And once you know who you are, then figure out what is God calling you to do with it. About a couple weeks ago, our guest speaker in chapel, Pastor Abigail Gaines, said, "In college, we often ask the question, who am I?" But she also said that that's the wrong first question to ask, but that we should be beginning our question by asking, who is God? Then we can wrestle with the question, who am I? So I agree with her, because we can only know who we truly are if we know who God is. So maybe the question isn't just simply, who am I? But it should be, in light of knowing who God is, who am I? By wrestling with these questions, my hope and prayer for all of you is that we would all become one step closer, right? That we would come one step closer to Jesus every day. In Scripture, God is described as many things, But today, I want to remind you that God is love. He is love, and he had handpicked us. He handpicked you and called you his beloved. Parker Palmer also said this: here is the insight most central to spiritual experience. We are known in detail and depth by the love that created and sustains us. This love knows our limits as well as our potential, our capacity for evil as well as good. Yet, as love, it does not seek to confine or manipulate us. Instead, it offers us the constant grace of self-knowledge and acceptance that can liberate us to live a larger love. In Galatians chapter 2, Paul talks about how the old Jewish law is dead, meaning the old laws did not lead him to life, but to death, because the law required perfect obedience, and Paul knew he couldn't do that. And Paul recognizes that it is only through Jesus that he can have life. And Paul articulates how his life and his identity is based on Jesus. So this is what it says. Galatians 2:19 and 20. For through the law I died to the law, so that I might live to God. I have been crucified with Christ, and it is no longer I who live, but it is Christ who lives in me. And the life I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. Paul says that his old self died with Jesus, and it is now Jesus that lives in him. This passage articulates how Paul views his life and himself, and it's not about Paul and him receiving a new life, but it's about Paul acknowledging that his life is no longer his own, and that his life belongs to Jesus, and that he is dependent on him. And the amazing thing about this is that this isn't about just a one-time thing, but the fact that this gift is extended to us daily, and God's mercy is new every morning. Isn't that awesome? Isn't that amazing? So through faith, Paul believed that Jesus died for him. And God did that because of his love for Paul. And that same love is available for you. When Jesus was crucified, he had two men right next to him who were also being crucified. They both did something egregious enough to put them there, and they both had an opportunity to either believe and choose life by being crucified with Christ, or choose death by being crucified but reject Jesus. And just like them, we have an opportunity to choose to believe and live. And it's not because of what we've done. In fact, Paul acknowledges that he can't have life based on works. It is not by our works, but because of God's love that Jesus died on the cross for us. And it's because of God's love that we can have life. Let me read you a short section from Henry Nouwen's book titled Life of a Beloved. Actually, close your eyes. I have called you by name from the very beginning. You are mine, and I am yours. You are my beloved. On you my favor rests. I have molded you in the depth of the earth and knitted you together in your mother's womb. I have carved you in the palms of my hands and hidden you in the shadow of my embrace. I look at you with infinite tenderness and care for you with a care more intimate than that of a mother for her child. I have counted every hair on your head and guided you at every step. Wherever you go, I go with you. And wherever you rest, I keep watch. I will give you food that will satisfy all your hunger and drink that will quench all your thirst. I will not hide my face from you. You know me as your own, as I know you as my own. You belong to me. I am your father, your mother, your brother, your sister, your lover, and your spouse. Yes, even your child. Wherever you are, I will be. Nothing will separate us. We are one. So it is through grace that we can stand before God, not because of what we've done. And we can find our identity in Jesus because of God and his love for us. And that's the foundation of our identity. And here, Paul personalizes God's love for him. God does love everyone, but Paul acknowledges by saying, Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. So I don't know if you've ever had this feeling when you were growing up, but do you remember playing things like dodgeball or maybe even kickball? Yeah? I hope you do. If you haven't had that chance, you should try it. It's pretty fun. But do you remember standing in line where you are getting picked for the team? And you're hoping and praying that you get picked for the right team, right? And so when I was in 3rd grade, when I moved from Japan to Hawaii, I was this shy little girl, but I knew how to play dodgeball. That's something that I really knew how to do. So although I couldn't speak a lick of English, but give me that little red ball, man, I could beat the crap out of you. So with that, although I couldn't communicate really at all to any of my teammates, there was something really powerful when they chose me and picked me for their team. So when I was chosen, I gained this level of confidence because I knew I was wanted. And isn't it really powerful? Isn't it something when you become chosen, when you're picked? Because when you are chosen, more than anything else, it makes us feel like we're seen and we feel valued. We need to remember that we are chosen by God. We are easily distracted from remembering who we are and whose we are. But no matter what, we need to remember that our identity is rooted in the love that God has for us. God loves us and calls us his beloved. He chose us, and we are redeemed because of his love. And it is because of the price God paid through Jesus. God gives it to us freely, but remember, it wasn't free. It came with a great cost. Henry Nouwen describes how we ought to live and embrace the idea of being chosen and being called the beloved. He says that we must recognize that the world will tell you many lies about your identity. But we need to remind ourselves that you are a chosen child of God and that you are his beloved. We also need to find people who will speak truth into your lives and remind you of your identity. So as you wrestle with the idea of finding your identity and answering the question, who am I want you to start by remembering one simple name God calls us: his beloved. I know this can be difficult for some of us at times because that's not what we've heard growing up. But remember, God created us uniquely. God knit us in our mother's womb, and we are his workmanship. If you are here at APU and you are thinking about God or wondering whether following Jesus is your next step or not, then let me encourage you to keep leaning into that. And if you want, ask me or ask any of the pastors, your faculty, staff members, and even your fellow classmates about their journey with Jesus. Lean in. Just remember, you are the beloved. Can you say it with me? I am the beloved. I am the beloved. So when you are hearing doubts in your head about who you are, or if you are hearing lies from others, or if you are lost and you don't know what to do, just stop. Just stop and know that God's love for you is available. It's here every day. And that he picked you and that he loves you. And it is only when we embrace his love for us that we can have a deeper understanding of our identity. That you are his beloved. Let me pray for you. God, thank you. Thank you for choosing us. We are broken and we fall short all the time, but yet you have chosen us and you love us deeply. So may we continue to lean into that truth and help us to find our identity in you, knowing that you are calling us your beloved. Thank you for your love. Go before us today, Lord. It's in your name. Amen.